The Loki series has just finished up, and I doubt it's controversial to say that it has been Marvel's most fast-paced and dynamic Disney Plus series to date. From the introduction and eventual breakdown of the TVA, to the endless assembly line of variant Lokis, to the relentless oncoming of plot twists, betrayals, and apocalypses, the show has left its viewers very little room to breathe. But amid all the world-ending chaos, there was one episode that took a bit more of a breather. While yes, a planet was in fact about to violently collide with another planet, the hours before that event are used to mold and solidify a relationship upon which the whole rest of the show will be built. I am, of course, talking about Episode 3, Lamentis. Over the course of this excellently written episode, not only does the whole trajectory of Loki's plot change, but we as an audience are taken on a journey that brings enemies together as they build mutual respect and trust through a voyage of troubled trials and tribulations. Despite all of the grandiose and explosive set pieces that come after, it's this emotional journey that makes Lamentis the best episode of the entire series. It starts with Sylvie on the way to accomplishing her goal of eliminating the Timekeepers. Just outside their elevator, she comes to blows with Loki, who is still, at this point at least, trying to stay on the side of everyone's favorite jet ski-loving hunter. She threatens to slice him up, but with some sleight of hand work, he quickly juts the both of them out to the last apocalypse lined up in her tempad. And here is where the genius of the episode truly begins. From the off, we see that these two characters are fully adversaries. They continue the battle they previously started, even as the world around them is falling into apocalyptic chaos. We see not only a physical confrontation, but one where both Loki and Sylvie attempt to use their magic on each other. The only reason the fighting stops is that Loki starts using Sylvie's tempad as leverage. Even as he saves her life from a falling meteor, it's made clear that this is just because he needs her to figure out a way to recharge the device, so that they can leave the dilapidated, doomed planet they now find themselves on.
You need me to get that thing recharged. That's the only reason you saved me out there.
So each has something that the other needs. Loki has the tempad, and Sylvie is the only one who knows how to charge it. He sees an opportunity in this impasse, and he bargains with her. They very begrudgingly agree to work together to get the hell off Lamentis, all while a massive moon-sized ticking clock hovers threateningly above them. But even with this alliance of convenience, we see that both characters are just waiting for a chance opportunity to betray the other. Sylvie pretends a neon sign will be able to charge the tempad and asks for Loki to give it back to her. And he sees right through this obvious ruse, calling her out on just how transparent she's being. This schism and mistrust between the two characters is then further exemplified by their encounter with the hermit woman in her caravan. Here we see the two very different methods these characters use to achieve their goals. Sylvie is all about brute force and finding the most direct route to her objective. Loki, on the other hand, relies on trickery and deception. Importantly, both of them fail when they try to use their strategies on their own, and they both get knocked back into the grimy dirt of Lamentis. This is a lesson both for the characters and for us. Though they may not trust or like each other, they will not succeed if they do not work together. And that's immediately showcased when they reach their next hurdle, getting on the train headed for the arc off the planet. Here they use their skills in concert, with Loki's illusory disguise getting them to the door, and Sylvie's enchantment getting them through it. Just a teaser of everything they could achieve if they worked together. But despite this first successful attempt at teamwork, they still don't trust each other. They get to the dining carriage and Sylvie says,
No, I can't sleep around untrustworthy people.
Oh, right, that me.
She also suggests that Loki should just let himself be enchanted, or let her just see the tempad. Come on, just for 1 second. She promises she won't steal it. But regardless of that mistrust, they start talking. Loki confides in her some of the details about his upbringing and his abilities, and in a much more reserved way, she reciprocates, explaining how she was taken away very early and had to teach herself how to do magic. They then also share their romantic pasts, and Loki confirms his bisexuality. Though in classic corporate Disney fashion, that sexuality never actually materializes on screen. But this sharing is what forms the first bonds of trust between them. Some time passes, and we see that Sylvie has indeed fallen asleep. Without ever directly addressing this, the show is communicating to us as an audience that she now at least trusts Loki enough to let her guard down temporarily. That trust may be budding, but their differences still remain. Sylvie's direct drive to her objective comes into conflict with Loki's more circular process.
Another!
So they get into a tussle, get tossed out of the train, and the tempad breaks. It's in this moment that we see how the dynamic between these two characters has already evolved. Despite Loki having lost his bargaining chip and Sylvie's righteous fury at its destruction, she doesn't kill him. There's no fighting or attempted backstabbing. Just two sad people. Two sad people sitting on a rock. They agree that the only way they have a chance of getting off Lamentis is to head for the Ark. So they start walking there, and on the way that gives them plenty of time for more of that most wonderful of things, sharing. At first, Sylvie labels Loki sharing his own past a free tactical advantage. But eventually she divulges a bit more about her own past, as well as just how her enchantment abilities work. Not only does the episode show us that both of these characters are in awe of each other's abilities, but it's at this moment that we realize this may be the first time either of them have felt comfortable enough to share a piece of themselves with someone else. And that is important. Sylvie can finally share who she is, and instead of being hunted or vilified for it, she's met someone who is impressed and shares some of his own story in return. After spending her whole life on the run, she feels safe enough with Loki to share the inner workings of herself with him. That mutual trust is one of the most powerful bonds any of us can experience. It's forged friendships and loves, and the breaking of it has created endless numbers of broken hearts and vengeful villains. Which is, of course, a grim portent of what awaits these characters at the end of the path laid in front of them. But in this moment, at least, Loki and Sylvie's trust is absolute, and we see that reflected in their final push towards the Ark.
Do we trust each other?
We do, and you can.
There are no more hidden agendas. We see two characters who are fully in sync as they pursue their goal. Their powers work in tandem, their abilities synergize. They have formed a bond at the end of the world. A bond so powerful it echoes out to the TVA across the halls of time. In a fantastic singular episode of television, we have gone on a fully formed emotional journey with these characters. Loki and Sylvie start as enemies, and then through both dialogue and their on-screen actions, we experience that relationship evolving to one of begrudging allies, then into a hesitant, budding friendship, and finally into one of selfless trust and mutual acceptance. It's that connection that's at the heart of this journey, and that is why Lamentis is by far the best episode in the series. Well, we're inside again. So while the whole rest of the world is having their hot girl summer and getting vaccinated, here in Australia it's winter, we don't have enough vaccines because of this fuckhead, and we've been in lockdown for now 4 weeks, likely to be at least another month, at a minimum. That's the optimistic projection. So that's where we're at. Now this one doesn't feel maybe as bad as last year, I think because of the vaccine. There's hope that at least, in 3 months I might get a little jabby jab in my arm and can finally be safe, but it's still pretty fucking bad. And again, just to really emphasize who is to blame for this, it's this guy and this woman, our leaders from the conservative Liberal National Party coalition, who have failed to secure enough vaccine, and who, in the local state of New South Wales, when cases were starting about a month ago, decided, nah, we don't need to lock down. It's a good time. Anyway, I'm doing super well. I'm doing really good. The Patreon link is somewhere around here if you would like to support me. But also I understand that this is a trying time where no one has any money for anything except rich people who are buying everything and then making us pay for it with rent and stuff. So, only if you can afford it. $1 or $5 tier. But if it's between paying me or somehow screwing over a rich person, screw over the rich person. For legal purposes, that was a joke.